Welcome to episode 4 of Lead and Win the Room with Russ Patterson, the podcast for people managers. In today's episode, I'm going to share one more tip from the world of Agile software development that'll help you uncover hidden friction points, small problems, and little opportunities to improve things within your team before they become bigger problems. This one's called The One Meeting to Improve Them All, Agile Retros for Business Teams. I'm Russ Patterson, and this is Lead and Win the Room. At the end of every Agile sprint, the Scrum Master will typically hold a meeting that's called a retro. Now, it's short for retrospective, and like the name implies, it's a meeting that's about looking back at the sprint that just happened. It isn't about talking about the performance of what was released or the code quality or customer feedback or product metrics. This is a bottoms-up discussion about how it went. What did it feel like? How could things improve and be smoother and more fun and more efficient for the team going forward? And the reason why this meeting is so important and so powerful and deserves to be added to the operating rhythm of every kind of business team, not just technical teams, in my opinion, is because if this is an important escape valve. As human beings going about our lives, because we've learned how to adapt to societal norms and social norms, we don't cry and squawk like a toddler might every time we're aggrieved in some small way by something that someone else does around us. We've learned, as by the time we're adults, that in any kind of environment, especially within a workplace environment, that you need to kind of choose your moments, right? If you call somebody out every time they mess something up or for every kind of shortcoming or try to give a note, no matter how well-intentioned it might be, of constructive criticism, that's not always going to be received in the way that it's intended, right? We've learned that sometimes when we offer up our natural human response to things, it gets people kind of upset and they don't take it very well. So learning that, we learn to go about our lives kind of sucking it up. We'll speak up about the big things that happen. If somebody's standing on your foot, you're going to mention, hey, you're standing on my foot. But some of the small things that might happen, particularly in a workplace, people tend to sort of carry those around and be silent sufferers because they just understandably want to get along well with the other kids in the sandbox and not cause too much unnecessary friction. So this is why a retro meeting is so powerful and so important, is because this is a meeting that's specifically for talking about these small things. So if it's well facilitated, what you're doing is you're giving the participants license to talk about how they feel about these kinds of small things that go on. How might things go better? What things are others doing that causes you extra work or friction or frustration? And it's a facilitated discussion that allows everyone to sort of have that discussion in an open, honest, authentic, and transparent way. That's, again, carefully facilitated. And what you get out of that is continuous improvement in your team, continuous improvement in processes, but also continuing improvement usually in ways of working, right? In the ways that people get along and how much fun they can have in doing their job, or at the very least, minimize the things that are not fun for them. So that's what a retro is. So how would you run one for business teams? There's a number of different models to facilitate these meetings, and you can try different ones and switch between them. If you Google retro templates, you'll find a myriad of options. There's my personal preference is for the start doing, stop doing, keep doing format, which I find is a good way to tease out the feedback that people might feel a little bit awkward about raising at first. So if you kick off one of these with your team for the first time, there's a couple of things. One is make sure that you've got a quorum. This doesn't work if you've got only part of the team there. You really need to have everyone, preferably or nearly everyone present, who reports to you or who's on this team that you want to run the retro with. Otherwise, the risk is that people start piling on with feedback and notes that are pointed indirectly at the person or people that aren't there. And obviously it doesn't work as well. You want everybody to be in the room to hear and think about the things that might apply to them. And the other thing you want to be mindful of with a retro meeting is that it is a bottoms-up discussion. If you do all the talking, it's not going to be a very good meeting. So you need to get people into a participative mode right away and make sure they're not arriving in kind of passive meeting attendance mode, especially if you're running this meeting with a team for the very first time. So you want to be mindful about how you kick it off and try to engage people and get them participating in something, in some kind of exercise almost immediately. Like as soon as you have everyone there, just grab their attention. If you sit in on a Scrum Master watching or kicking off one of these meetings with an Agile team, they will sometimes throw out some kind of a puzzle or some kind of a question that people must answer and must answer quickly, and that kind of gets their juices flowing and gets them thinking. You could even ask a leading question that might have something to do with the subject matter we're going to get into, like name a song that represents how you feel about how the last month went that we're looking back on, or name an animal that represents how you feel about how you've been getting along with your coworkers, or how efficient the team has been. Or, it doesn't really matter what it is. What matters is that you get people, everyone has to answer almost before they have time to think. So now that you got everybody warmed up, the next thing to do is to start with the exercise. And you'll probably have to explain it, that we're not looking for personal feedback. We're not looking for people to put a note up that says, Russ, please stop doing X. We just leave them as a sign to whomever, and hopefully the person has a self-awareness to realize if it applies only to them, that they're the person that this particular ticket's talking about. It's important in this process, in this style of meeting, for most kinds of teams, I think, to encourage people to do this in writing first. So, in the old days, in the before times when everybody would be meeting in the same room, or maybe you're still able to do that, it's fantastic. Then using an actual physical sticky note is great. If you're doing an online meeting, there's still lots of tools that you can use that allow people to input data on some kind of a collaborative document. There's purpose-built software for things like this, but even if in a very simple solution, you could even just use a spreadsheet with the headings and people could just write thoughts in cells underneath collaboratively. So the format isn't that important. What is important is that you get people writing their feedback and starting to put it up. And they'll do that mostly silently, and give them some time to start filling out the columns, glancing at what each other is posting. There might be a few giggles here and there. It's all good. But by allowing that to happen in writing, you're getting a record. You're getting data points that you could look back on at a future retro if it's appropriate. You're also getting an opportunity for people to speak up who might find it very hard to vocalize this kind of feedback. Because again, we're trying to break that veneer shell of our societal norms and our politeness and our desire to be nice to everybody and to be liked by everybody, to do something that's very practical and necessary, and it's the airing of grievances, right? Like from Festivus from Seinfeld, if you're familiar with that reference. So make sure people can participate in writing, and then you or your facilitator, whoever is facilitating the meeting, once that's slowed to enough of a crawl, you start reading up. Okay, what does this card say? Stop making changes on a side thread and not updating the ticket. Fantastic. Okay, who put this feedback up? Can you elaborate on it? Is there a specific situation? Like, we can start to have a discussion. How does the rest of the team feel about that? Is this important? And you go through ticket after ticket, and hopefully you can insert some humor to keep this light, because it otherwise can become a tense meeting. But I promise you, even if it's awkward the first time or two that you do this, if you keep finding, say, an hour a month, which is not a lot, if I promise you this will improve the efficiency and make your team happier, wouldn't you put an hour and a half in to help make your team happier? By the second, or if not absolutely by the third meeting, people will start to get the hang and of what this is about, and how to participate in it well, and how to take that kind of feedback that's coming sometimes at them, because it's always uncomfortable, but learning how to take it with grace and humor and in context. So, incredibly powerful tool. Again, all of these ideas, they didn't come from a person, they didn't come from a company, they came from a manifesto, right, of engineers that put together Agile a long time ago. And these are so well honed as ideas. There's a reason why almost every Scrum Master will hold this kind of meeting at the end of their Scrum. It makes your team better, it makes your team happier, it makes them more efficient. So that's it. Give it a try. You won't regret it, I promise. This has been Lead and Win the Room, and I'm Russ Patterson.